Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack and Dave here, and we're going to get a bit of a debate going on Mr. James Madison, how well his season has been going, and can he be better than one of our all time creative greats, Mr. Christian Eriksen? But just an FYI, everybody, there was going to be a debate show planned with Ben and Sim from over on We Are Tottenham TV, as well as Sean from Spurs Talk Show, but I believe both of them are not feeling well as also they have an event planned this evening, so it's not going to go ahead. So everybody, hopefully that you take this James Madison debate and get in the comments down below and let us know your thoughts on it. Smash that like button as well for us, please. But let's get this show started, Dave. And where this sort of came from is I feel like Madison, right, is being listed as sort of one of the signings of the season. A player that just sort of fits in at Spurs as if he's been there sort of forever, right? So maybe let's compare him then to somebody that we felt like we've been waiting to replace for such a long time, and that is the Christian Eriksen. Maybe start you off first with just the question of, do you see James Madison already maybe answering that sort of long, kind of almost overdrawn, kind of thing with Spurs that we just never really seem to have replaced Christian Eriksen? Is Madison starting to do that for you?
Yeah, 100% he is, Jack. You only have to look at his numbers since he's come in, right? The amount of goals and assists the guy's got. It just means Sonny can do what Sonny's good at, running in behind. It frees him up to do that, and Madison will find him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Madison has come in and filled that sort of creative void, and with Sonny's deadly finishing, it gives us a much more potent attack, in my opinion. Because look, last season was very easy to read. Get the ball into Kane and mark everyone else around him. You take them out of the game, double up on Kane, take the ball off Tottenham, go back at them. And what we did need, and I've always argued this, Jack, is someone that can get on the ball in a bit of a deeper position and start spraying them passes left, right, in behind, and stuff like that. And that's what Madison offers us. But he also offers us, a threat outside the box. Another thing that we've spoken about, Jacko. Someone that in games where maybe there's not a lot of chances, that you need someone that can pick up the ball and have a crack outside the box and hit the
Yeah.
target. And James Madison does that, and also set pieces, Jack. So I think when you look at his all-round contribution to Tottenham so far and what he provides, 100% he picks up that creativity void that Christian Eriksen left.
When Christian Eriksen left, though, what ended up happening was it felt like Harry Kane kind of picked up a bit of the leftover sort of creativity that was needed, right? He would start dropping deep. That's what Jose had him do. And we just never seemed to really bring in any sort of creative midfielder that could really sort of replace an Eriksen. We had Tanguy Ndombele, we had a Giovanni Lo Celso. We even tried to, I think, convert Dele Alli into maybe more of one as well, but it just ended up not really working. And so now James Madison, you could argue, is maybe one of our fourth, maybe fifth attempts at, trying to do it. And Harry Kane was sort of picking up that slack. But what he ended up not being really able to do, because he's a striker and he also needs to be present in the box, is James Madison is able to just drop deep, pick up the ball, off of a center back, pick up the ball off of Basuma, and just sort of be able to get moves going. He can beat his man in midfield. Kane could do that occasionally for us, but he couldn't do that all the time because he also has to operate right as a number nine. And this is where I think, we're back to where we kind of were at our best under Pochettino, where what Eriksen did was Eriksen was able to sort of feed everyone. He was able to kind of provide for Dele Alli. Some people even think actually part of Dele Alli's best years were because Eriksen, right, was able to feed him, a lot of those runs that he did in behind. Same thing goes for Sonny. Same thing goes for Kane, when I think Kane was maybe also more of a striker kind of back then. It was a lot of some of the service that did come from Eriksen. And you look at some of his season at Spurs, and it's a bit of a crazy, kind of question to ask, can someone be better than this guy? Because in 2016-17, he had 23 goal contributions, 8 goals and 15 assists in the Premier League alone. All of those non-penalties as well when you look at it. He also had 10 goals and 10 assists the following season in 2017-18. So that'd be 20 goals and assists in total. And then the following season after that, he met another 20 goals and assist season with 8 goals and 12 assists. He's had two 10-goal plus seasons with Spurs, again, all non-penalties for us. And he's had 4 seasons with us with 10 or more assists. He was the symbol of creativity, and he was just sort of a guy that just found a way to sort of get the best, it felt like, out of everyone else. He was sort of the creativity maestro for everyone. Madison, I feel like, when comparison, right, he's maybe, at least in my opinion, more of a goal scoring kind of creative
Yeah.
midfielder than actually Eriksen really ever was. And I am going to kind of, maybe dive into that a bit more with Dave. But if we were to look at Madison's best ever stats over at Leicester City in 2021-22, he had 12 goals and 8 assists. That's 20 goal contributions. Again, that's actually all non-penalties for Madison as well in that season when he had 12 goals. And I think the following season, this relegation season, he had 10 goals and 9 assists, which is 19 goal contributions, and only one of those was a penalty. In his best ever season for Leicester City, he actually had a better rate of goals and assists per 90 than Eriksen did, which I think is where I'm going to get us started with, Dave, is when you look at his season right now, he's on 6 goal contributions in 6 games. He's had a healthy record of, 1 per match. Can he beat, maybe Eriksen's sort of continued productivity? Because Eriksen's stats are crazy. When you look back at, a 15 assist season, that's just like, wow, must have been one of the best in the league that year. But I think Madison can do that with the healthy rate of creativity that he's bringing to others, the goal contributions he's adding. I think he might end up being probably, 14 goals I could see. I could see maybe 10 assists maybe in there as well. Could he end up having a better goal contribution tally than what Christian Eriksen ever did with 23?
Look, I think so, Jack. I think there's a number of reasons why I think Madison is better all round player than someone like Christian Eriksen. Don't get me wrong. I think Christian Eriksen was great for Tottenham. He suited that system expertly. But you have to remember he played in one of the best teams in the league. With Madison and the numbers he's posting, he hasn't been playing with one of the best teams in the league. So we're sort of a bit further down than where we were, or where Leicester were, where compared to where Tottenham and Christian, or where Christian Eriksen was playing with Tottenham. So, but I do think Madison offers a lot more of a goal threat. I found the older Eriksen was getting, the more frustrated I was getting with him. I think his set pieces completely declined. I thought, some of his assist and his overall general play was declining. And also, Eriksen didn't work hard out of the ball. He had people up behind him that would do all that industrious work and get the ball for him. He was more one that just sort of sat in between the lines, wait to get on the ball, get turned. When you look at James Madison has that side of the game to him. He gets stuck in. He goes to ground to win the ball, and he also drops back to pick up the ball. Madison is more of a box-to-box midfielder, whereas Christian Eriksen was more of just sort of like a cam. And with James Madison, Jack, I think he affects the game a lot more than someone like Christian Eriksen. Madison is constantly involved in everything we do because he's involved in both sides of the game. I think his set pieces are absolutely phenomenal, but he offers more of a goal threat, in my opinion. I think one of my biggest criticisms of Christian Eriksen, or frustrations, great passer on the ball, great sort of guy to keep possession, good guy to sort of break the lines with passes, but was the goals output. I often found myself very, very frustrated with him in terms of goals. I always looked at him as a player. It's like, if he just gave 10% more, he would rack up, 15 goals a season easy with the ability he
Yeah.
has. Whereas I think with Madison, I think you get the goal threat, I think you get the assist and the creativity, but you also get the doggedness, working out of possession and being able to win the ball back. That maybe Christian Eriksen didn't provide that Tottenham team, or didn't even need to provide that Tottenham team.
It's an interesting point you make there with kind of the goals, right? And I feel like Eriksen, when I think of a lot of the goals that he would score, they'd be usually great efforts from range, right? He was good from range. He had a good kind of hit on him. But when you kind of think about his goals, not a lot of them really come inside the penalty area. He wasn't that sort of type of player that looked
No.
comfortable kind of roaming around the box. Or even, too, this is something to think about with James Madison's game. Eriksen wasn't always really the player to always skin past his man. I think he
No.
had,
Yeah.
right? He had like a clever move, kind of like a Toni Kroos would, for like Real Madrid, where he can kind of have, a bit of sort of classiness to him, where it's hard to get near him, type of dribbling, where you can't really take the ball off of him, but he's not going to really do you with a move or anything like that. And he's not going to turn you. He's not going to take even that sort of risk, I feel like. Also, Eriksen at some stages felt very risk averse. Even when I watch him right now, he's just very much about sort of keeping the tempo going, making passes, from deep, and not really allowing opponents to get near him. Whereas sort of James Madison's a bit of the opposite. He kind of likes operating in these tight areas. He likes when a player gets close to him, because then he can spin him. He can also try to take on his man one-on-one, get into the penalty area, and have a shot on goal. He also, similar to Eriksen, has a very good shot from range. And that's where I feel like he is going to outdo him in the goals department, because he has more of just a general penalty area type of threat. Even the goal he scored against us last season was absolutely spectacular with that effort that he had. It was kind of similar to almost like Sonny's finish from the North London Derby, where you're just like, dang, really nothing you can do about that, and that sort of situation. And he's definitely going to offer far more goals. But what he is also going to, I think, bring differently to Eriksen is, I feel like Eriksen was more of a guy that was kind of, he liked to drop deep, pick up the ball off the players, and really more spray kind of passes. He
Yeah.
loved a good switch of play. He was just an excellent player at that sort of long range type of vision.
Passer of the ball.
Yeah, and Madison, I feel like almost, I wouldn't say he's going to be, I don't think he is as good as Eriksen was at that. I think Eriksen really was one of a kind, still is kind of one of a kind in that department. But what Madison is going to do differently and sort of makes up for it with is that ability to turn his man, is that ability to just get a move going from deep. He can have somebody press up on him. And instead of what Eriksen would do, Eriksen, if someone pressed on him, would just know who he was playing to before he receives it. First time pass, sprays it over to the left wing, right? Madison's going to end up spinning his man, and then all of a sudden he's just bursting through the midfield, catching everybody off guard, and has all these runners and people ahead of him, which is just different than Eriksen. He just wasn't able to do that as much as James can. And so I'm really excited to see, that sort of difference in how we also even build up, play. It's why even Spurs probably look a bit more exciting at times, because Madison takes these risks. He's much more of a risk taker than Eriksen ever was. So maybe I'll hand that off to you,
Well,
Dave. Like, when you look at how they drop deep, they both drop deep to pick up the ball, which is great. But Madison was different than Eriksen was, in my opinion, or is different.
look, I don't think I've seen Eriksen drop as deep as I've seen Madison drop as deep at times this season to pick up the ball. Look, maybe it's a case he didn't need to either. Don't forget you had Toby and Jan who could,
Yeah.
find him if he made runs or put themselves in certain positions further up the pitch to get on the ball. But look, I totally agree with you on that, Jack. One, like your prime example, look at the weekend with Saka, right? Eriksen probably would have just passed that back to the fullback. Madison didn't. Got turned, drove at them into the box, played it off for Sonny. Sonny got the goal, and I think that's exactly sort of what you're talking about. Madison has a bit more get up and go in terms of on the ball, looking to take on players, driving at them, but also getting into the box on the end of things where he can. And look, that's where some of the great midfielders in my day growing up watching went and got a lot of their goals, like Sir Gerrard, Lampard, people like that. They had all aspects to the game. And I think Madison is similar in that sort of regard. Whereas I think with Eriksen, I think you're right, Jack. He was more of a sprayer of the ball, right? A player that picked it up, moved it, looked to take it again, moved it on. Whereas Madison is a bit more direct, I would say,
More
in terms of,
positive in a way.
yeah,
Yeah, more direct and
looking to
positive.
affect the game by driving at players. But look, Madison, he still gets the assist that Eriksen was bagging, but he scores more goals. So, look, it's too soon to say will he be better for at Tottenham than what Christian Eriksen did, because you've only got a 6-7 game bite-sized sample than what you did with Eriksen, where you had years. But there is potential for that to happen because, like I said, with Eriksen, I thought he was regressing as a player sort of towards the end of his Tottenham tenure. That sort of output just wasn't there. And if you remember, when he left, a lot of Spurs fans didn't really mind him going at that point. A, because he wanted to go, but also because his performances completely dropped off. And it wasn't just before that. It was a long time before that where the performances dropped off. Whereas I think Madison actually is improving with age.
Yeah.
So there is a big potential he could offer Tottenham, more or be better at Tottenham than maybe what Eriksen was.
Given what he's done with Leicester in the past, and now that he's surrounded too by far better players, I think, in the attacking areas, and too, maybe one of my last points would be is that he's actually finally playing in his debatably his best position, which is more centrally, which is more as a creative midfielder. He wasn't really given that chance all the time at Leicester. Lots of times, if you looked at their lineups, he was more played out on the right, played in these different sort of positions in kind of the forward line. And even Gareth Southgate seems to see him as more of kind of a forward or an attacker than he really does as kind of a true kind of midfielder. And I think Ange Postecoglou's finally given him that license to be more of kind of a true midfielder, sort of like what Eriksen was for us. And I think now that he's taking up, I think in a way, a similar type number 10 role, we're going to see him bring something different to Eriksen, which I think is always going to be cool. Is that with Eriksen, like I said, maybe more that long range vision that was just really impressive at times, just his sheer ability just to know what to do with it before he received it. Also, kind of like I brought up before, one of those players that, yeah, maybe he's not going to beat you with a spin or anything, but he's actually just can't really get near him because he just knows what he's doing with it before he gets it. And Madison is just going to be different, far more kind of not as risk averse, is going to try to take risks, is going to try to beat you. Even when I think about it, if I'm going to, as a defender, if someone's bearing down on me, kind of making a run through the midfield, has all these options left and right, I feel like Eriksen would be the one that is just going to he's going to play it to somebody else to score. Madison might play it to somebody else to score, or he might actually take it past you and go for it
Yeah.
himself. And that's also, I think, a whole different dynamic to what we had. And I'm just looking forward to seeing him playing with better players, a better manager around him, a better system around him. And I do think one day, maybe even this season, I think he will get more than those 23 goals and assists that Eriksen had. 23 goals and assists is spectacular for a midfielder, and that's where we are maybe not giving our boy Eriksen enough credit, because that is a ridiculous season. But still, I think Madison right now already on a goal and assist per match, and he's also had a season where he actually had a better sort of, per 90 type of tally than Eriksen did when he was even at Leicester City with worse players. I think there's maybe a chance he could actually have better numbers.
We also have to remember, right? It's put out there today by Alistair Gold. Madison has been playing with a knock. He's been playing with
Wow.
injuries since he's arrived here.
Yeah.
So once we get him injury free, we're probably going to see an even better player. And I'll be honest with you, Jack. I'm surprised at how good Madison actually is when you watch him
Yeah.
week in,
Yeah.
week out for a full 90 minutes and you're interested in what he's doing. I'm surprised at the quality that he actually has. He just never loses the ball. He's absolutely insane. But look, long may it continue.
Long
Like I
may it
said, hopefully
continue.
we get a better player if he's not injured, Jacko.
Yeah, and we got a happy Sonny right now. This is where it came from in the first place.
Mm.
Sonny had some really glowing quotes for Madison about how he's doing a great job about trying to replace Harry Kane's creativity, and this is where it all came from. But we decided to compare him to our man Eriksen instead. Let us know, everybody, in the comments down below if you think, maybe we got anything wrong, or maybe if you agree with us on this kind of Madison take. Also, let us know if there's anything you want to see us discuss in the future, maybe something that's been on your mind. Hit that like button, please, on the way out. Feel free to grab a membership if you do want to support the channel, and we will be seeing ya. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
In
In
the
the
big
big
end,
hands we
we
trust.
trust. We
We
never
never
stop.
stop.
See you, everybody. Have a good one.
Let's go.